You want to know what 6 years of your life looks like when someone finally puts a number on it? It looks like a folder. 25 pages. Every system I built. Every client I saved. Every 11 p.m. call I took while my daughter was asleep down the hall. And my boss, Lauren Kensington, flipped through it like it was a takeout menu she'd already decided not to order from. Then she took off her glasses, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Ava, you're amazing at support work, but you're just not leadership material." 6 years. 6 years of being the first one in and the last one out. 6 years of fixing problems nobody else even knew existed. 6 years of watching Lauren walk into boardrooms with MY ideas dressed up in her lipstick and her confidence and her name on the slide deck. And in that moment, sitting across from her in that glass conference room, something inside me went completely, perfectly still. Not broken. Not sad. Still. Like the moment before a storm decides it's done being quiet, I picked up my portfolio. I straightened my blazer. I smiled at her. And I made a decision that would bring an entire company to its knees. Hi, my name is Ava Thompson. I'm 34 years old. I'm a single mom to the most incredible 7-year-old girl named Lily. And for 6 years, I was the invisible architect of Apex Dynamics. The woman who held everything together while everyone else got the credit, the titles, and the corner offices. This is the story of the day I stopped holding it together. And honey, what happened next? They were not ready. If you've ever been the most capable woman in the room but somehow the least recognized. If you've ever poured your whole soul into a job while your boss poured your work into her own career. Stay with me. Because this story is for every single one of us who was told we weren't ready when the truth was, we were the only ones who ever were. Let me take you back 6 years. I was 28. Freshly out of a marriage that didn't survive the weight of real life. Suddenly, a single mother to a 1-year-old baby girl with big brown eyes and an even bigger laugh. I had no safety net, no backup plan, no co-parent to split the midnight feedings or the daycare pickups. I had Lily. I had myself. And I had a job offer from Apex Dynamics, a mid-sized operations and client services company. That was in complete chaos after a massive internal reorganization. The previous operations team had basically walked out the door all at once, taking years of institutional knowledge with them. Nobody knew where anything was. Clients were furious. Processes that were supposed to be documented lived inside the heads of people who no longer worked there. I walked into a company that was on fire and didn't fully know it yet, and I did what women like us always do. I got to work. Within my first 3 months, I had already started mapping out every broken workflow I could find. I stayed late, not because anyone asked me to, but because I could see the gaps and I couldn't stand leaving them unfilled. I built a client tracking dashboard from scratch. I documented processes that existed nowhere except in the chaos of everyone's separate email threads. I created an onboarding system for new clients that cut the setup time in half. By the end of year 1, things were running. Smoothly. Measurably. Nobody threw me a party. Nobody sent a company-wide email. But Lauren started calling me her rock. She'd say it with a smile in meetings. "Oh, you need to talk to Ava. She's our rock." At the time, I thought that was a compliment. I didn't understand yet that being someone's rock means they're standing on you. Lauren Kensington. Let me paint you a picture. Tailored blazers. Perfect blowout. The kind of woman who can walk into a room she's never been in and immediately look like she owns it. She's smart. I want to be fair about that. She knew how to read a room, how to talk to executives, how to frame an idea in language that made powerful men lean forward. What she was less good at was the actual work, and that's where I came in. Over the years, Lauren and I developed a rhythm. She'd bring me a problem, sometimes a half-formed idea, sometimes a full-blown crisis, and I'd solve it. Quietly. Completely. Then she'd present the solution upstairs, and I'd watch from my desk as she got the credit, the recognition, the performance bonuses. I told myself it was okay. I told myself I was building something, that my time would come. I missed Lily's winter concert in 2nd grade because I was on an emergency call with a client in London. I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot of the office, laptop open, talking through a data migration crisis, and getting a text from my neighbor who had taken Lily to the concert. She looked for you in the audience the whole time. She was so brave. I cried in that parking lot for exactly 4 minutes. Then I went back to solving the problem. That was my life for 6 years. Work, Lily, work, guilt, work, exhaustion, work, repeat. I kept telling myself, this is temporary. This is investment. One day they'll see what I'm worth. Year after year, my performance reviews were glowing. Ava is exceptional. Ava is irreplaceable. Ava consistently goes above and beyond. And year after year, when I'd carefully ask about growth opportunities, Lauren would say some version of the same thing. You're doing incredible work, Ava. but leadership requires a certain kind of strategic presence, maybe in another year or two. I believed her. I kept working. I kept waiting. The promotion opportunity came up after our VP of Operations announced she was retiring. The role was Director of Operations Strategy. It was the job I had essentially been doing without the title or the salary for 3 years. When I heard about the opening, something lit up in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. This is it. This is finally it. I spent 3 weeks preparing. I built a 25-page portfolio. Not a resume, a portfolio. Impact metrics. Before and after comparisons of processes I'd rebuilt. Client satisfaction data that traced directly back to systems I had designed. Projections for what a properly structured operations strategy team could deliver in the next 2 years. I was ready. I was more than ready. I walked into that glass conference room on a Tuesday morning feeling, for the first time in years, genuinely hopeful. Lauren was already seated. She smiled when I came in. That professional, warm, slightly distant smile she used in formal settings. I placed the portfolio in front of her. She picked it up, flipped through it. I watched her eyes skim pages I had spent weekends building. She nodded a few times, the way people do when they've already made up their mind and are just waiting for the polite moment to say so. Then she set it down, took off her glasses, and said it. "Ava, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Your work is solid. But senior management needs people who can inspire teams and drive vision. You're an amazing support person, truly our backbone. But I don't think you're ready for leadership yet, maybe in another couple of years. Support person. I need you to understand what those 2 words felt like. Not because they were cruel, but because they were so completely, almost impressively wrong. I had been the one driving strategy for 3 years. I had been the one inspiring my team, quietly, consistently, without the title that would have made it official. I had been the one with the vision that Lauren then walked into executive meetings and presented as her own. I was not a support person. I was the entire architecture. And in that moment, sitting across from Lauren in that glass room, I finally understood something I should have understood years earlier. She didn't fail to see me. She chose not to. Because the moment they officially recognized what I was actually doing, they'd have to pay me for it. They'd have to give me the authority that came with it. They'd have to admit that their rockstar VP of Appearance had been riding on the back of her invisible operator for 6 years. I sat with that for a long moment. Then I picked up my portfolio, thanked her for her time, and walked back to my desk. I texted my neighbor, "Can you pick up Lily today? I need a little time." Then I sat very quietly and I made my decision. The next morning, I walked into the office at 9 a.m., not 7:15, not 7:30, 9 o'clock, my contracted start time. I didn't stop by Lauren's office for our informal pre-day briefing, the one I had invented and maintained for 4 years because it helped her days run smoother. I made my coffee. I sat down. I opened my task list, and I worked my job description, exactly my job description, nothing more. Now, I want to be clear about something, because this matters. I did not sabotage anyone. I did not delete files or hide information or let things fall apart on purpose. Everything I had built was documented. Everything was in the shared drive, organized exactly the way I had always maintained it. I just stopped being the human override system that compensated for everyone else's gaps. I stopped answering messages at 9 p.m. I stopped jumping into problems that weren't assigned to me. I stopped translating Lauren's vague directives into actionable plans for the team. I stopped, and within 48 hours, the cracks started showing. The first one came from Priya in client success. She walked over with that particular expression, the one I had seen 100 times, the one that meant, "I need Ava to fix something." "Hey Ava, the quarterly reporting dashboard is showing some weird numbers. Can you take a look real quick?" I smiled. All the documentation for the dashboard is in the shared drive under Operations, then Dashboards. There's a troubleshooting guide in there too. Section 4 covers the most common display errors. Let me know if you can't locate it. She blinked. "Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a guide. I built it 2 years ago," I said pleasantly. "It's very thorough." She stood there another second, like she was waiting for me to change my mind and just fix it for her. Then she nodded and went back to her desk. That was day 2. By day 5, the cracks were gaps. Lauren started sending me messages with a new kind of urgency. Not the normal, "Hey, can you look at this" urgency, but the slightly desperate kind that meant things were not working the way they were supposed to. "Ava, the Harrington pre-launch report wasn't in my inbox this morning," I replied. "That report was previously something I added to my workflow as an extra step. It's not in my current assigned deliverables. I can walk you through generating it yourself if that would help." There was a long pause before her response came. "That's fine. I'll figure it out." At home that week, something was happening that I hadn't expected. I was present. I picked Lily up from school every single day that week. We baked chocolate chip cookies on Wednesday night, and she stood on her step stool at the counter and narrated the entire process like she was hosting a cooking show. We went to the park on Thursday, and I pushed her on the swings until my arms were tired, and she was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. On Friday night, I tucked her in, and she looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Mommy, you've been home a lot. I like this." I kissed her forehead and held it together just long enough to get to the hallway. Then I leaned against the wall and let myself feel the full weight of everything I had traded for a job that called me a support person. Day 9 is when everything accelerated. The Harrington account was our single largest enterprise client, $4.2 million annually, a complex multi-phase implementation that I had personally designed from the ground up. Custom integrations, exception handling protocols, a phased rollout schedule that accounted for their legacy systems. There was a critical issue in Phase 3 that the implementation team had been struggling with for days. Under normal circumstances, I would have already been deep in the middle of solving it, probably before anyone had officially flagged it as a crisis. But that was the old Ava. Lauren stepped in to lead the recovery calls. I watched the calendar invites go out. I watched the tone of the office shift, that particular shift that happens when senior people start getting nervous. And then the messages started. From Lauren, "Ava, where are the Phase 3 transition notes?" From Peter in implementation, "Ava, the client is asking for the integration documentation. Which folder?" From Lauren again, "Ava, we need you on the executive briefing call in 20 minutes. I attended the calls. I answered direct questions. When someone asked me something specific, I answered it. When someone asked me to essentially take over and run the whole thing invisibly like I always had, I pointed them to the documentation. The exception handling protocols are in the Harrington project folder, subfolder implementation, document titled EH Phase 3 Final. The integration specs were documented in our kickoff notes from March. I can tell you exactly where to find them. I could feel the frustration radiating through the screen. I could feel people waiting for me to just step in and save it like I always did. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't. The panic in the office became something you could almost touch. On day 11, Peter came to my desk in person. He looked like he hadn't slept. He sat down across from me and lowered his voice. "Ava, we are about to lose Harrington. I'm talking about a $4 million client. Lauren is losing it in the executive calls. Marcus is involved now. Please, we need you." I looked at him. "Good man, Peter. Not responsible for any of this. Peter, everything they need is in the system. I built every piece of documentation specifically so that the team could function without everything living in my head. If they're struggling, the issue isn't that the information doesn't exist. It's that no one ever bothered to learn it because I was always just there to do it for them." He stared at me. "I know," he finally said quietly. "I know that." That evening, I took Lily to her favorite Italian restaurant. We sat in a corner booth and she ordered the pasta with butter and parmesan and talked for 20 uninterrupted minutes about a disagreement she'd had with her best friend at school and how they'd worked it out. My work phone was in my bag on silent. I was completely, fully, entirely there. And I thought, this is what they took from me for 6 years. On day 13, I was called into an emergency meeting with Marcus Hale. I had met Marcus maybe a dozen times over 6 years. He was the regional VP. Calm, data-driven, the kind of executive who didn't show up to things unless they were actually serious. His presence in that conference room told me everything I needed to know about where we were. Lauren was already seated. She looked exhausted in a way I had never seen before, like the particular exhaustion of someone who has been running on borrowed systems and just ran out of credit. Marcus closed the door, sat down, got straight to it. "Ava, I'll be direct. The Harrington situation has made something very clear to this leadership team. There are critical operational systems in this company that exist primarily in your knowledge and your capacity. We have a serious problem, and I believe you understand exactly what that problem is." I nodded. "I do. What I'd like to know," Marcus said, "is what it would take for you to fully re-engage." I had prepared for this conversation, not arrogantly. I had prepared the way you prepare when you know your value and you've decided you will no longer apologize for it. I took a breath. "Marcus, I was passed over for a director-level role 2 weeks ago. I was told I wasn't leadership material. That same week, I was contacted by another company offering me exactly that. A director of operations role, with a team, the authority, and the compensation that reflects the actual scope of the work." Lauren's face went still. Marcus's expression shifted. Not alarm, exactly. Recognition. "I haven't accepted that offer yet," I continued, "because I've invested 6 years in building something real here. But I will not continue to do director-level work without director-level recognition. That's not a negotiation position. That's just the truth." The room was quiet. Marcus leaned forward. What does the right role look like to you, Ava? Director of Operations Strategy. Direct reporting line to you, not through a middle layer. Authority to build a small team of 3. People I select. Compensation that accurately reflects the market rate for this scope. And a formal mandate to implement the kind of knowledge sharing and systems transparency that makes sure no one else in this company becomes as invisible as I was. Lauren opened her mouth. Marcus raised one hand, not unkindly, and she closed it. He looked at me for a long moment. That's fair, he said. We'll make it happen. Later that afternoon, Lauren appeared at my office door. She closed it behind her, sat down. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, I owe you an apology, Ava. A real one, not a professional one. I waited. I relied on you in ways that weren't fair. I told myself I was protecting the team by keeping you in a role you were good at. But honestly, she paused. I was protecting myself. You made me look good. Every single day you made me look good, and I was scared of what happened to my reputation if you moved up or moved on. I sat with that for a moment. Lauren, I want you to hear something. I was never trying to outshine you. I just wanted to be seen accurately. There's a difference between someone threatening you and someone simply being visible. You turned my visibility into a threat in your own mind, and that cost me 6 years. She nodded slowly. Her eyes were bright. You weren't lacking leadership, she said quietly. I just couldn't afford for the right people to notice. No, I agreed. I wasn't. We didn't hug. We weren't going to become best friends. But something was said that needed to be said, and I left that room lighter than I'd felt in years. I accepted the Director of Operations Strategy role. The first thing I did was hire 2 women. Both of them talented, both of them previously overlooked, both of them exactly the kind of people who had been doing invisible work for visible people for too long. We built something different. Every process documented and shared. Every win attributed to the person who actually created it. Every team member with a clear growth path so that what happened to me could not happen to them. 3 months later, client satisfaction up 28%. Operations team overtime down 38%. Employee engagement scores, for our department specifically, highest in company history. And every Friday at 5:30 p.m., I walked out of that building. One evening, I came home and Lily was at the kitchen table, drawing. When she heard the door, she ran to me and pushed a piece of paper into my hands. It was a crayon drawing of a woman in a superhero cape standing in front of a tall building. What's this, baby? I asked. She looked up at me with total certainty. That's you, Mommy. You're the boss now, but you're still my hero first. I held her so tight, and I thought about every 11 p.m. email I had answered, every school concert I had missed, every parking lot I had cried in, and I thought, never again. If you're watching this and something in this story felt familiar, if you recognized yourself in the woman who holds everything together and gets called support for it, I need you to hear this directly. The fact that things fall apart when you stop overfunctioning is not a coincidence. It is the evidence. It is the proof of everything they refuse to put in your title or your paycheck. You are not too quiet for leadership. You are not too behind the scenes. You are not almost ready. You have been ready. You have been doing the job. You have just been doing it for someone else's name. Start documenting your impact. Today, not someday. Build the record of what you actually do. Set your boundaries like they are non-negotiable, because they are. Know your market value and stop accepting less than it. And when the moment comes, and it will come, speak clearly. Not angrily. Not desperately. Just clearly. Because the most powerful thing you can do is stop making yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You built it. You know you built it. Now make sure they know it too. If this story hit home, please like this video and subscribe to Betravex. I share real stories for real women who are done being invisible. Drop a comment. Have you ever been the invisible architect? What happened when you finally let them feel it? I want to hear your story. Thank you for being here. You are not just support. You never were.